Hey folks, how's it going today? R&D Diesel, and today this video is all about diesel cavitation. Quick disclaimer here though, this video is not going to be anything about working on trucks themselves, and it's not going to be anything about how to make your truck run faster or have higher performance. This is mostly going to be about theories behind cavitation, as I attempt to explain through some mathematical equations as to why cavitation occurs and help to explain to you. It's going to be mostly educational at this point, and so if you're not interested in that sort of thing, you might want to click away and watch one of my other videos instead. And if you're not familiar with cavitation, this is basically the effect where small bubbles form inside the cylinder liners on your truck, and they can actually, those bubbles will collapse and actually causes a large ramming effect that can actually eventually break a hole in your cylinder wall, and it's certainly very detrimental to your engine. Now for Ford diesels in particular, the ones that you want to be concerned about would be the 7.3 liter IDI that was made from 1988 to 1994. For whatever reason, these engines were actually very susceptible to this cavitation because they had relatively thin cylinder walls. In effect, what happens inside your engine is that as this piston moves up and down and as combustion occurs, the cylinder walls actually vibrate a little bit, or they kind of tend to flex out. And what this causes is it causes the fluid itself, that water that you have inside you of your coolant system, will actually accelerate, and it achieves a very high velocity. But when a fluid achieves an extremely high velocity, it also tends to reduce its pressure, and that's exactly how airplanes fly. You see, they actually accelerate the air, the fluid, if you will, over the top of the wing, decreases that pressure, and so it's actually the atmospheric pressure that pushes the airplane wing up. But let me show you guys a bit how that applies to our diesel engines. So right here I have this long, kind of crazy looking equation, and what this is the Bernoulli equation. This is a very useful equation that actually describes what happens to a fluid as it increases in velocity, at least with respect to pressure and how the two of those are related. But at the very least, it gives you a significant amount of insight as to what occurs in the real world. See, this isn't something made up. This is actually based off of real world observations. And so this powerful set of symbols actually represents what occurs in a fluid. This is a model, if you will. So we can go ahead and rearrange this a little bit, and we get this kind of goofy looking form where this is pressure at state 2 is equal to pressure at state 1 plus the difference in the square of the velocities times 1/2 times the density. There's a couple terms here that we find that we can kind of ignore, if you will. So if we're talking about what's going on inside of your engine, you figure the fluid itself is not typically moving at a very high velocity to begin with. For the most part, it's at a standstill. And so what that means is that we can actually kind of ignore the velocity at the initial point, because that's basically zero, relative at least to the velocity at the second state. Now if we're considering the conditions inside of your water jacket, we can kind of rearrange some of these terms and get rid of some of these 1s and 2s, and we can actually call them things that are real world applications. So we can go ahead and rearrange this, and you can see this form down here and this one up here are indeed very similar, but I've replaced a couple of the terms. So instead I've actually replaced the velocity at state 2 with just velocity in general. That's just the velocity of that fluid, the velocity of that coolant in our water jacket. Now this pressure right here is what I call the original pressure of the fluid, and this is what pressure you'd have statically speaking. So if the fluid itself wasn't moving, that's the pressure on the fluid that we would have. So this here could be the pressure in your radiator, and then this pressure over here is just the resultant pressure that we get after we factor in for velocity. So if we look at this and break it down, what we see that occurs is that we can actually increase the velocity of our fluid, and it actually subtracts from the original pressure. In effect, we can lower the pressure of the fluid by increasing its velocity. Now this is good for airplanes, folks, but it is terrible for your engine. Alright, so folks, I've pulled out this table of properties for water, and one of the cool things here that we were looking at is these columns here on the left-hand side. We've got pressure and temperature. What this is this is saying that, okay, at certain pressure, then this is basically the boiling point of the water. So as you generally know, that as we increase the pressure in our fluid, we can increase the temperature at which it would take for that water to boil. So at about atmospheric pressure, about 14.7 psi, water boils right about 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That makes sense. And certainly as we decrease the pressure, the temperature that it takes to boil that water goes down, 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 to where at 1 psi it boils at essentially a little over 101 degrees Fahrenheit. So the same thing occurs inside of your radiator. You don't want the water to boil, so what you do is you'll increase the pressure of it. That's why we have pressurized radiators. So you can see that if we, say, tack on about an extra 5 psi onto atmospheric pressure, the water doesn't boil until it gets to about 228 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is the same idea inside your engine. So when that water inside your water jacket actually moves at a really high velocity, we know from the Bernoulli equation that the pressure drops. And in essence, it will actually start to boil, and that is where those cavitation bubbles form. So inside of your engine, we have these small little pockets where the fluid moves at extremely high velocity and in turn reduces the pressure. And when that pressure drops below a critical value, the water in essence actually boils in there. Now this is fine and all that, but it's when those bubbles collapse that it actually causes a ramming effect. It strikes the cylinder wall with tremendous force and actually can break away small particles of the cylinder wall. And over time it actually drills a hole inside of your cylinder liner, inside your cylinder wall, and certainly that's not good. So take a look at this equation, we'll see that we want pressure certainly to be as high as possible so that we can have as high of a boiling point as possible and in turn prevent cavitation and prevent our water from boiling inside of our coolant systems. So let's talk about some of the ways with which we can actually prevent cavitation. So certainly we can actually decrease the velocity of the fluid. If the velocity of the fluid is nothing, then we achieve as high of a pressure as possible. Now recall that these high velocities are generated inside of your engine by those cylinder walls flexing in and out just a small amount, but doing so with extremely high velocity, causing the pressure, of course, to drop. So one of the ways that we can do this, that we can decrease the velocity of the fluid, is to basically have a stiffer cylinder wall. And this is where the 7.3 IDI comes into play. The 7.3 IDI is essentially the old 6.9 IDI, but with bored out cylinders. That effectively decreased the thickness of the cylinder wall and allowed it to flex out more and in turn achieve a higher velocity in the fluid, and that is exactly why they're so susceptible to cavitation. Certainly another thing we can do to help prevent cavitation is to lower the temperature of the coolant system itself, because that of course will prevent it from boiling in the first place. And also to prevent cavitation, perhaps we can increase the original pressure of the coolant itself. So we can perhaps do that by increasing the pressure in the radiator, but assuming that you don't really want to mess around with increasing the pressure of your radiator because you don't want to blow it up, then maybe we can't really change much about that. Engines typically have their own thermostats that limit their temperature to a certain point that's already optimized for fuel economy and for longevity of the engine. And we can't really change the geometry of the engine too terribly much because, well, we'd have to basically get a new block to do that and completely redesign it. But radiator pressure, this is one of the things that you can indeed maintain. This is why it's so critical that you have a properly functioning radiator cap that will maintain the higher pressures inside of your radiator so that we can in turn also prevent cavitation. But the one thing that we can do to prevent cavitation is add SCAs, or supplemental coolant additives, to our coolant system. Now these are essentially borate nitrate or sometimes nitrate and molybdate compounds that you add to your coolant system. What these compounds do is that they convert the normally very soft iron oxide that's already present at the interface between your cylinder walls and the coolant, and it creates a very hard compound that actually protects against cavitation. And in addition, this protective layer that's formed can actually essentially heal itself, so that when any pitting occurs, it actually just occurs in the protective layer itself rather than your cylinder wall. What we can do is we can add nitrate to the coolant system, and this is actually the compound that creates that extremely hard layer. Now unfortunately, high concentrations of nitrate is bad for your radiator. It can break down the solder that holds the radiator together, and it's also a little corrosive to the aluminum itself. So that's why there's also some silicate compounds that are added. This is another supplemental coolant additive that protects the aluminum from corrosion that is normally affected by the nitrate addition. However, if we have too much silicate inside of our coolant, it can create a gel that also clogs the coolant passages. So we can certainly see here very quickly that there's a lot of things that can go wrong with supplemental coolant additives. And this is why it's so important that you maintain the proper concentration, not too high and not too low of a concentration of supplemental coolant additives. You want to have a high enough nitrate concentration to prevent decavitation from occurring, yet you want to have enough silicate so that you can prevent your radiator from corroding, but yet you don't want to have too much silicate so you don't clog your coolant passages. That's why it's so important you have just the right Goldilocks ratio, if you will, of the SCAs. Well guys, that pretty much does it for this video here today. I hope to help you get a little bit better understanding as to why cavitation occurs in your engine. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much by throwing out all these crazy equations and things like that. But I hope that this will give you some insight to understand a little bit more about your engine and a little bit more about what all is going on with these certain phenomena and why we have to be concerned about cavitation. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it, and take care.